I want to dive into the who you want to be statements.
Awesome.
So I gave you questions to think through, and the reason why I gave those questions just to kind of see how you're picking up your head, what you're thinking about, and when it comes to these statements, I want you to think about a couple things. One is there's probably going to be buckets that you want in statements when you think about all your statements, but when you're thinking about who you want to be, things like with who you are, some of those things are sometimes seasonal. There's things like, okay, I remember this in my childhood, not really that much, or this was heavily in my 30s because of my environment. But when I want you to think about who you want to be, it's you saying, I will not let go of these things for anything. So I don't care if I'm 50, I don't care if I'm 60, I don't care if I'm 70, this will be my life. I will always be pushing towards to be this man. So that's a mindset I want you to have is this isn't like, oh, cool exercise. Talk about who you want to be. Hey guys, look, I got a list of who I want to be. No, I want this to be in you so deeply of, listen, life is going to get hard. There's going to be a lot more trials that come. But one thing you'll know about me is these statements in my life, and of course I can change them and shift them as time goes on, they're a part of me. And I'm going to fight for them with everything inside of me.
I love it, man. I love it. Are the answers to the questions my statements or the statements separate?
So the answer to your questions are separate.
Perfect.
So
okay. I'm going to tell you my statements now.
Okay.
Is that cool?
Absolutely.
Because this is something too I've been, and I really appreciated the examples. I think other people's, and I know you had shared yours with me a while back, and that's kind of what got me starting down this path. But the first one is to be a patient and compassionate leader. And I think that's very specific to Kay and my dogs, and hopefully my kids someday. But I want to be patient and compassionate with the people that I love. And if there's time, my friends. I do, and I genuinely mean it like that. But there are people that I'm committed to for the rest of my life, and there's never a reason for me to be impatient or not have compassion for what they're going through or the experiences we're having together. The next one is a minimal and confident man without ego. And I think the without ego is almost like it wraps the whole thing back together. But this theme of being minimal is something that's really important to me. We joked about my attire last episode, but there were just habits I had in the past that looking back and things I wasn't necessarily proud of, but it was also experiences I had to go through to learn that I didn't need that stuff. There are some things that I still keep in my life that are meaningful and carry a message, but continuing to be as minimal as possible is really important to me. And while being confident on that journey, because I think the adverse was the driver. I thought that having things that weren't necessarily associated with minimalism was going to somehow make me more confident. And it's hilarious how it literally does the exact opposite. Having these things just gives you more insecurities. So I want to be extremely confident in who I am, and I want to be minimal while I'm doing it. And I think both of those help subside my ego when I remember. An ardent learner and listener. And this is an important one because I think this is something I'm really working on. Whether it's reading, whether it's and one thing you might pick up on with me too is I do little things I really do have a list in my phone of over 46 people whose names I've gotten from the gym. And I find it so special the way it makes someone feel when you remember their name. So little things like that come with listening. And that's a reactive listen too, where a lot of people it's hey, I'm Steven. Hey, I'm Mike. I didn't fuck up I didn't mess up my name. Sometimes people just aren't focused on listening. I guess I'm not going to use my 5 with enthusiasm, but I really want to be better at listening, and I mean they could be two separate statements, but I'm going to continue to be very intentional about learning. I think a lot of my life I've learned on the job. But taking time I keep bringing up reading because this is something that's a new habit for me. But I really am enjoying the process of reading, which isn't a skill I'm good at, you know, and it's also something that helps tame how many windows I have open in my life to be able to just focus on a book, right to left, reading words on a page that associate themselves into words has been just an interesting process. But even the way I calendar things too is always about watching things on YouTube that are helping me gain new skills or be a better person. Ferociously present. This is just on the list. I know it's important.
Wait, hold on a second. What do you mean it's just on the list?
It's on the list, so I think about it every day. But you know, outside of meditation, we talked a little bit about it last episode too. I'm gonna get there, and I'm really working on it. You know, even things like taking breaths in the middle of the day randomly. Really important. But I think I know it's something I can be better at, and I know it's something that's going to be really helpful for me. You know, like all these things that we talk about too, like even just my association with negative things, that's in the past, right? Like that is stuff that happened in the past. As far as anybody's concerned, now forward can be all just those things, you know? And I think that's the connotation of being present to me as well. It's not so much just enjoying every moment and living this day like it's my last day, but it's also about being the person I want to be right now, right? And not being stuck in any sort of, you know, made up perception of myself that I think somebody thinks that there's another person that may think this about me. I want to be a businessman that's focused on value and not money. And every time I write this one out, I always want to not include money, but I need to intentionally make sure that every decision that I make from a business perspective is not based around making money for myself. Making money for my business is going to add more value, whether it's employees and things of that nature, more value for my customers. I don't want to focus on money. I just always want to think about value. And we can even associate this back to like, you know, like some of the things I've mentioned to you about like equity versus fee for service. Like when I do consulting, like I can get X amount per hour and it's great money, great pay, zero fulfillment, you know, like, and again, I think some of this comes with privilege, but just focusing on value. And when I think back of the decisions I've made in my life, the long fuse, when I find it and I light it, the bang is a lot bigger. So the last one is disciplined enough to say no in exchange for saying yes to myself and who I want to be. So disciplined enough to say no in exchange for saying yes to myself and who I want to be. And the other way that this one gets written too is simply disciplined enough to say no in pursuit of who I want to be, which basically is the last one that applies to all of them. So how can I use these statements to make sure that I am laser focused? And it's really helpful, right? The example I gave the other day was like somebody was like, come to Miami Music Week. I am focused on this. I hope you have a great time. Send me some pictures. I'm not the best at saying no, but I think when you have principles and values that you're solely focused on, it really does make saying no easier, especially to people that you love. That's all I got, man.
That's awesome.